Hey everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge podcast. My name is Dad. And today my dad senses are going like crazy because of the stupid Cuties movie. You guys know that I did a video about this before based on the preview of it, and everybody was coming out in defense of this who was like super liberal about like, you know, body shaming and about like, you know, freedom of all this stuff. Everybody was coming out in defense of it, and then without seeing it, and for a good reason, they're saying, look, you haven't watched it yet, don't judge it till you watch it. And now everybody's seen it. So let's go through the problems that persist with Cuties. And if in the end you don't cancel your Netflix subscription, I don't know what will make you cancel your Netflix subscription, because this, if anything deserves that to happen, it's this. Supposedly, I've been hearing some numbers around that Netflix has lost $9 billion. It's not true. I just don't see it being that way. Maybe in their stocks have dipped to like that number, but they'll bounce back and they know it. It's just not true. But if people keep putting pressure on this company to take down this atrocious movie, they're going to have to. Here's the problem. If most of Twitter tells you that it's wrong, it's probably wrong. I mean, left, right, middle, everybody thinks it's wrong. Except for a few, you know, amazing Rotten Tomatoes, like, credible movie reviewers who think it's incredible. We're going to talk about them today too. So this is what I love, this one tweet by this guy. He says, "I'm making a film about how terrible snuff films are. I had to kill someone to make it, but I hope in the end people will get the message." That's exactly what this whole film, Netflix came out, everybody who came out in defense of it is like, look, she's making a film about how terrible child exploitation and all these dance competitions and like kids being hypersexualized, how terrible it is. But in her pursuit of that, she literally does that in spades, okay? Here's part of the reason that she's getting away with it, because she's a she. If this was a dude making this movie, wouldn't even made it past the script. Wouldn't even have made it anywhere near Netflix. But because a woman made it, no, it's all good. Women can sexually exploit children. No. That's not a go here. I think they might have thought that they'd get away with it by doing that. Leela Rose, who is gorgeous Twitterer, she says, "You don't fight child exploitation by exploiting children. You don't stop child P by creating, selling, and distributing child P." Love her take on this. This is a person with their head on right. If you're not standing up for what's right in this situation and you're not calling them out, it is crazy. Before we get into the movie itself, I just want to get into like some of what people are saying about this, especially on Rotten Tomatoes. It's pissing me off. This person here, Don't Effing Panic, pre-order now, probably has a book, looks like a douchebag, I don't know who she is, Kelsey something, whatever, she's checkmarked, or maybe, I don't care. Y'all, Lamau, this scene is taken totally out of context. This film, made by a WOC, this is it, don't forget that, is the climax moment. The whole film is about how society, y'all, meaning she's blaming everybody else, sexualized girls at such a young age and the damage it does. This is an important film. Okay, dumbass, you don't have to do the thing you're talking against to show the thing, to be against it. That's the problem here. So when she says this, she's dumb as a rock. Who is that person? I hope it's someone famous, because she's stupid. Here is the tomato meter, and this is the problem with the movie industry as well. Look at the audience score. Look at the tomato meter. It's just the one all these movie reviewers, I don't know if it's a subculture of weirdos or whatever it is, but they always give bad films really good reviews. I love good film, okay? There are movies that most people would come across and say that's an incredible movie. Sometimes they just review movies because this is their life. They review movies and like are trying to give an honest thing. And if the worse the movie is, the better they give a stinking rating. It's so weird to me. I get that art for art's sake is there and that's what critics are for, but let's go through some of these critics and about this film where they're sexually exploiting young girls. Not even in the movie, for the movie, okay? Monica Castillo says this, and she's from Roger Ebert, okay? Top critic. With Cuties, Ducour, I don't know what her name is, Ducour, announces herself as a director with a keen visual style, who's unafraid to explore these cultural and social tensions. Keen visual style, eh? A keen visual style is child P. I'm not even going to show you anything about that film on this podcast. It's not going to happen. But from what I've seen, and I'm going to tag some moments, and if you want to watch it, go watch it, whatever. There's literally close-ups of these little 11-year-old girls' crotches. And how many times do you have to go through these takes? How many times do you have to do this? A keen visual style, eh? Well, listen, Monica Castillo, maybe the FBI needs to check out your laptop because you are clearly cool with this type of filmmaking, and that is not cool. Ed Whitfield from the Outre says, the audience may have some growing up to do. Thanks, Ed. You're telling literally millions of people who are canceling Netflix and who are against this film, they can see with their own two eyeballs how bad and exploitive this film is. And you're telling me I have something growing up to do? Listen here, you douche. I don't even know what to call you. You are literally the problem. If this stuff continues and Netflix doesn't take this down eventually, and these types of critics are out there, here's what's happening with this type of comment. They are pushing forward normalization of MAPS, minor attracted people. This person, I'm not saying that they are that, but they're pushing forward normalization of minor attracted people. Joel Mayward says this, Ducour's attentive, empathetic, and daring come-of-age film reminds us of the urgent need for empathy and critical thinking in a social media era. Now, he's sort of maybe onto something where he's trying to take the side of like, well, she's trying to call it out. She's trying to call it out. But again, we're not talking about the film itself as the plot of it and as the storyline goes. Maybe that's true. We cannot get around the fact that she had to exploit children sexually to make a movie against child exploitation. We need to make sure that's in context, especially when you're reviewing a film. You cannot forget one of the most important parts of that. That's what we're talking about. Fred Topple, who is definitely check this guy's laptop. It's tasteful, and it's a poignant point about the line between fun, empowering dancing, and going too far, too young. I cannot believe people watch this film and can take this away, that it's tasteful. It's tasteful? This is tasteful. Even if a film, like, look at me. If you watch Schindler's List, it's an incredible film, powerfully moving. Nothing in it is tasteful. It's not tastefully done. It's master crafted. It's put together. There's nothing tasteful in it. This is not a tasteful film. That guy is creepy. Make sure you don't come near my kids, friend. Angela Han from Film Week says, it's really confident, interesting, and has something worthwhile to say about coming of age. Stop saying it's cool to make coming of age films that are exploiting 11-year-old girls. Sorry, you can't do it. There's a line you cannot cross. And if that means you don't get to make a film about a coming of age girls and 11 years old, then you don't make it. You don't need to make it. Coming of age films should be for like 16 to 18 years. Like we've seen all the American Pies and everything, the coming of age comedies and all that stuff. This coming of age, you cannot use the word coming of age to get around the fact that you're exploiting kids and you're literally creating fodder for MAPS. That is all this film is. There's just some quaint people who are movie reviewers who do this for a living, who are talking about this film, and on a whole, it's really just literally, like I said before, it's Karate Kid with twerking. That's what this film is. Anybody can make a film like this. It's very simple. You take a kid and a problematic individual in a house that's maybe poor or has different values. They get sucked into something and then they go for it all the way, and then they go to the competition, they win, and it's all magical, blah blah. In the end of this film, though, she puts down both outfits and then she walks away into like normal clothes, and she makes a decision that she's not going to go either way. Could have been a 40-second TikTok. Just saying, you do not have to exploit kids to make a movie about how bad it is to exploit kids. This is our issue. The issue isn't that the film might be, as a whole, in the end, could have been about that, but you just can't square it. You cannot. It's just, you cannot do what this person has done, and that's why the world is up in arms. If it wasn't such a problem, why are so many people up in arms about it? Why are so many people angry about this? Are we all prudes? Are we all the patriarchy? Are we all against women's rights? When most of the people that I'm seeing that have a problem with this are women. Let's just pop on a Twitter for 2 seconds and just see what people are saying. Let's just type in #Cuties. Let's do it real quick. This is where we're going to talk about something like, shame on the parents who let their kids be in this film. Shame on the writers who wrote the script. Shame on the choreographers who made the dances. Shame on the production team. And most importantly, shame on Netflix for trying to normalize P. Yep. Don't know, don't care. You hit the nail right on the head. A lot of people are getting triggered by this film about how they were abused when they were children. And that's really hitting a lot of people. One person tweeted, and I retweeted this a lot, that if you are against this film and you're out there hashtagging cancel Netflix, cancel Cuties, but you let your kid go on TikTok and dance the way half the kids on TikTok dance, you don't get to say a word. If you're not monitoring your own kid's thing on TikTok, I monitor my kid's TikTok, And he's a 14-year-old boy, and even then I'm telling him to delete things, and I'm monitoring it 24 hours a day because they do some. And I watch his TikTok, his little feed, and it's all these young underage girls, and it's mind blowing that parents are not monitoring their kids on their social media. And some people will be like, "That's their privacy." Half these kids are underage. First of all, second of all, do you really want that out there for the internet to have for the rest of your life? When our kids become like mothers and grandparents, look what they're going to have to look back on. I see pictures of my grandmother and stuff, and they're just, I'm not saying we want to go back to that, but like, what a different world we live in. We're going to go back to see our grandparents' Instagram where they're showing their boobs on the internet. It's just a different world we live in, and if we continue to normalize this, it's going to get worse. Hollywood and all these major players are pushing for this crazy movement of normalizing this behavior and normalizing this media and normalizing it because they are the main ingesters of this. Again, we'll talk about Jeffrey Epstein. What this doesn't happen. The world of the media, Hollywood, political elites need somebody like Jeffrey Epstein to facilitate these things. Because when you get to a certain echelon of power, a certain echelon of wealth, you could literally have everything, except the thing you can't have. And the only way you get that is by doing illegal activities and literally shaping the culture like Hollywood has shaped it to where it's going right now, to making this okay. This is not okay. I want to talk about something, about another thing that really bothers me about this film, is about these parents who are letting these kids be in this film. I know most of you out there would never allow your kid to be in a film like this, exploited like this, for any amount of money. I would never, ever. And I talked about this last video. Didn't they go through like 650 auditions to get these people? She was receiving twerking videos and talking all this craziness. Again, the only reason this exists like this is because a WOC, a woman of color, made the film. And so the whole world has to walk on eggshells around this because it's like, can't say anything against it because you might be racist. You might be sexist. You might be something-ophobe because, it's a woman of color made it. I don't care if it's a woman of color made this movie. It's still terrible. It's still exploitative kids, okay? It's still exploiting 11-year-old girls for a film. I want to talk about how Hollywood shapes kids first. So look what happens here. Macaulay Culkin, one of my favorite child actors when I was growing up. I wanted nothing more than to be this kid's best friend. Could you imagine the crap that kid went through to where he is now? Michael Jackson. Give me one actor's name that grew up in like the Disney world and tell me that Hollywood didn't mess them up. You give me one person that Hollywood didn't mess them up from child. If you're started as a child and you're not messed up to this point, there's probably a couple out there, maybe, I don't know. But it's very rare that I think it's the exception, not the rule. You got guys like Justin Timberlake who grew up in the industry. He seems to be pretty normal. But you got a bunch of child actors who grew up in, like, it's mostly women too. Do you notice that? Not all guys kind of go off the deep end in Hollywood, but a lot of girls and a lot of women who grow up in this industry from small age, they're the ones who get pressured, and they're the ones who turn into the Britney Spears and the Lindsay Lohans and the crazy girls that end up taking drugs and becoming alcoholics and everything else. So you take these 4 or 5 girls, whoever in this film, 11-year-old, put them in this movie right now that is literally being dissected every single day and being told that this is the grossest thing you've ever seen, that they are being sexually objectified by men all over the world in maps all over the world. And you don't think that's going to have an impact on their futures and their lives? It absolutely is. So shame on you, parents of these girls, for allowing this to go forward. I don't care. No matter even if 5 people stand up for, even if they're famous douchebags out there in Hollywood who are trying to normalize this anyway, listen to the rest of the world. Listen to the rest of us normies out here who ingest the content, who pay for it. Right? Hollywood elites aren't paying for your content. It's us. So when Netflix is going to be canceled because of this big thing, that's on you. No parent should ever have allowed their kid to be in this film. Nobody. There's my rant about that. Let's get into the freaking timeline of the film because, geez, this is just sick that this happens. I can't believe this. So I had Wander with Intent, who is my ride or die. Had her go through and get me some of the point by points, and just trying to figure out. I don't want to show any of the film, but I'm just going to walk through it. So she tells me at 3 minutes, Muslim teaching talks about the traditional role of a woman and how women who dress in almost nothing are evil and won't go to heaven. So if you're a fundamentalist Muslim or you're a Muslim culture, it teaches that modesty is very paramount to their religion. Like, you can't be showing off your skin, hair. Like, it is what it is. That's the culture this girl grows up in. But it doesn't make it okay to say that an 11-year-old girl can choose the path she wants to take. That's not, we can argue about this all day long. And we're going to talk about raising your kids in Christianity, raising your kids in fundamental religions, all this stuff, because yes, it's detrimental. But I'm still the parent. When I want my kid to go to church, they're coming to church, right? When you're 16 or making, you know, if you're a well thought out kid, even at 13, and you want to make a choice and you want to come talk to me about that choice, let's talk about it. Of course we will. But here's the thing. You grow up in an area, you have the obligation to do what your parents tell you to do. I'm still my kid's parent. I get to parent. I get to do what I want as long as it's not illegal, as long as I'm not abusing them. And someone would say this is abuse, but it's just not. Raising your kids in fundamental Christian religions could be considered, I don't know, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that that's the reality of the world. There's billions of Muslims and billions of Christians, and they're all raise your kids how you're going to raise them. It's up to that kid when they're older to make the choice, and it's up to the parent to create a child, to help create a child that's going to make good decisions as they get older. That's a narrative for a different thing. But this is just telling you, hey, if you're not into what your parents are into and you're 11, go for it and go do it. This is coming of age, is this idea that this girl has made a brave stance against her parents and is going to go off on her own, do her own thing, and they're telling little girls that it's okay. And let's not pretend that this movie is going to be watched by millions of little girls. It's going to be watched by millions of little girls, and Netflix knows it. How are they going to stop them from watching it? How are you going to do it? You know, back in the day of good old Blockbuster, you can walk into a movie store, a Blockbuster, and just rent a movie that was rated 17. You'd have to have ID. Netflix has made it so easy to get a hold of content that you can never normally watch if you didn't. How are they checking? I'm telling you, it's marketed towards little girls because look at the posters. Look at the way it's been done. It's marketed to kids, but they say it's not. It's absolutely for kids. It's so scary. The main girl starts out as a bully, rude and pushing the other girl around, and somehow she wants to be like them. She wants to be like the bullies, which is weird. And then she starts to watch what they do, and then she starts exploring the dance herself online. So she's like, oh, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of the mean girls group, right? 27:47, at one point, the competition girls had one girl flash a boob at a camera. And I think this was a 16-year-old girl. It's just, there's too much going on. It's just gross. This film is gross. 22 minutes, girls watching PRN, okay? Not showing they're not showing us on the film what it is, but they're describing it like there's a hot dog in the mouth, and what if he pees in your mouth, and how it's like they're having adult conversations as 11-year-old. Let's take this aside for a second, this conversation right here. These are actors, yes? Okay, we can agree on that. They're reading a script, sure. They're still 11-year-old girls. They're still 11-year-old humans that are acting and are watching this and discussing this dialogue. How does anybody think that's okay? Even in the culture of art and saying that, well, it's for art, and sometimes we have to sacrifice this for art and for like information. Never, ever sacrifice a kid because of a movie. It's never worth it. Hollywood will take what they can get, ingest all these kids, and spit them out on the other side, damaged and ruined. Hollywood has ruined so many people's lives for money. And they get money. And money. It's all about money, and fame. It's never, ever going to be worth it to ruin a small child's life by exposing this type of stuff. You don't think they can, at the end of this, they don't know what they're talking about? They are exploiting 11-year-old girls to make this film for scenes that are so raunchy and disgusting like this one, okay? At 36 minutes, at almost 37 minutes, one girl, oblivious about a condom, blows it up in the park. And she's blowing it up, and it's like, they're like, you're going to get AIDS, and they're all, and it's disgusting. Like, how does this stuff make the cut of these movies? Like, I think what's happening here is we're all being played to this degree of like, we're going to make this so crazy and take a huge leap forward for minor attracted people and normalizing this behavior. And they're just trying to do it. So, because what we're doing right now, we're talking about, we're giving it free advertising. And that's the scariest thing here. If Netflix doesn't remove this film, I will never watch Netflix again. My kids will never ingest another piece of Netflix ever again. It is disgusting. I get it if it's like 1,000 people that get upset. Sure. You got like 10 million subscribers or whatever. 1,000 people, no problem. It cannot be ignored how many people have a problem with this. And they're ignoring it. And they're just like, nah, it's all good. It's a very good movie. I don't understand their meetings that they're having in Netflix and being like, we're getting ratioed here. What should we do? Well, let's come out and say it's a good movie. Then they'll believe us. How dumb are you? Who fired these people? All of them. Just admit when you're wrong. Why can't you just admit, yeah, it's wrong. We shouldn't have done it. Because Hollywood needs to perpetuate this at all costs. Even if it costs billions of dollars in revenue right now, they need to, at all costs, make this normal. at all costs. This isn't tinfoil hat conjecture, people. This isn't a conspiracy theory. We know that there's a map ring in Hollywood. We know it. Jeffrey Epstein was one of the main perpetrators of this. We know it exists. Hollywood at all costs. It doesn't matter if it's going to cost them half the revenue. They need to push this forward so that they can avoid going to jail for it. No person, I don't care how many, I hope this is the truth forever, even for my kids going forward, will we ever allow this to be normal? No matter, and we're all catching on to Hollywood's little ploys here. We're all seeing it now. And if you're cool with this, you're just part of that narrative. I'm sorry, these people reviewing these films, they're part of Hollywood. It's a necessary evil to do all this stuff. And so they don't care if they lose $9 billion. That's a necessary risk and a cost they're willing to pay to perpetuate this narrative, to make this normal. Don't ever make this normal. So 4217, the main character starts to break out of her bubble by showing very provocative dance moves. And then they're doing it on the pavement or humping the pavement and all this stuff. And it's just disgusting. They're watching raunchy dance videos. They're humping the floor. They're teaching the other girls how to hump the floor. And they're teaching themselves how to twerk, right? This is the twerking, Karate Kid twerking scene. Hour and 3 minutes in, lots of lying. It's all throughout the general theme. Breaking into places, stealing money. It's all nuts. 58 minutes. They're doing the sexy dance in front of these creepy security guys. They're trying to get into this place. These guys don't let them in, so they start dancing. And these guys are just like, we can't forget that there's two actors, male actors, who are sitting there watching these 11-year-old girls twerk on camera and enjoying this, or acting like they enjoy it. Anybody part of this film should have stepped away a long time ago, because now they're all tainted with the same brush. This is disgusting. Just for art's sake, it doesn't make sense. This is not something that should have been created ever. An hour and 7 minutes in, she steals her cousin's phone at the beginning of the show, and she's been using it to make videos and stuff for the dancing girls. He walks in on her using the phone takes it back, confused on why she had it. She starts stripping to her cousin, trying to convince him to let her keep it. He's disgusted, and she grabs the phone and runs to the bathroom and takes a picture of her Tinkerbum, that's what we call in our house, and posts it publicly on her uncle's phone and gives it back to him. She posts it online because she wants him to get in trouble. Then a classmate slaps her butt and says it's because she's a SLUT, and she stabs his hand. Like, it's just, oh my gosh, just that scene where she's sitting in the bathroom taking a picture of her Tinkerbum, it scares the crap out of me. My daughter's 8 years old, and she's coming into a world that thinks that this is okay. That her friends and some parents that clearly don't care about their kids let their kids do this stuff, and then those kids influence other kids around them. This is a failure of parenting at 100%, this film. It is so scary that we are here right now. And if you're not scared, you should be. And if you're not speaking up and canceling your Netflix account, you should be. This is the time. If you're ever going to cancel something, this is the moment right here, because if it gets past this and they get away with this and people shut up about it, the next one is going to be worse and worse, and it's going to be normalized and normalized and normalized. Remember what I said, the fringes, both sides, take massive steps towards something because they know they're going to get a little bit of leeway. And they know that they'll push it next time even harder, and they'll get it eventually in 10 to 15, 20 years. It's the long game and long con these people are playing. Let's not forget that there is literally a ring of child trafficking in Hollywood. And it's probably one of the biggest rings in Hollywood and elite politics, the biggest massive ring of child exploitation that exists. And they own the media. They own Hollywood. They own our political system. And so when they're partaking in this thing, they're going to stop at nothing to protect it for themselves. When you have power and money to do whatever you want, it's the thing that you can't have is what you want. That's the problem. Then they did the big dance, and it was like the audience is booing, but there's one creepy guy in there like, yeah, and the judges are like, yeah, and it's just like, whatever. Again, there's no redeeming qualities of this movie to even make it be like, yeah, well, she's trying to call it out, so I get what she's trying to do here, and, she's made a good point about how this is bad. Except she made it bad. And there's close-ups of their hands in their... how many times I have to take this? There's probably cameramen just doing this take after take, staring at these little girls' middle parts, and just these little girls. It's going to be very interesting as a social experiment to see what happens with these girls who start in this movie going forward with their lives, because this should not have been allowed to happen. We have got to stop allowing Hollywood to ingest kids, and YouTube and Instagram from ingesting these kids, taking all the money they can get out of them, and then just casting them aside like a gum wrapper later because they're done. There's too much evidence that Hollywood is toxic for kids. There's just too much. Overwhelming evidence. If you take 100 kids and put them in Hollywood, 97 of those kids are going to come out damaged on the other side. Taken advantage of, drug addicted, alcohol addicted. They're going to have body dysmorphia. They're going to have eating disorders. They're going to have all these problems because the Hollywood perpetuates this narrative that you have to be perfect. And in order for you to be part of films, you have to do things like Harvey Weinstein wanted you to do. If you think Harvey Weinstein is in jail and that this is all good, it's all done now, Harvey Weinstein is this much of what's happening in Hollywood. This still completely goes on all the time. They're just not being called out because women are still scared to call it out, but that's changing. Thank God. Thank people like Rose McGowan for sticking to her guns and just calling this out. If you're interested in watching that, go listen to the podcast Catch and Release. This whole world of Hollywood elites just taking advantage of young women for their own, just to put them in movies, it goes on. Harvey Weinstein was just one of the bigger ones that got caught. You know what's happening. And Hollywood is a bad place for kids. Stop wanting this for your kids. No kid wants this in the end. Any kid who's in Hollywood right now is put there by their parents and is pushed there by their parents. And it's just I don't think we're ever going to get around it. And it's just an argument we're never going to win because there's too much money to be made. Just too much. And if you're going to put kids in film, just keep them in, like, we would watch Mrs. Doubtfire yesterday. Do that. Let's bring back those kinds of films. But even that, kids are still in Hollywood. It doesn't matter what kind of films you're making. Kids are abused by Hollywood. Kids are ruined by Hollywood. Let's stop putting kids in movies. I don't know how you would have came around. If you want to make this film, find an 18-year-old, bunch of 18-year-old girls who look like they're really young. That's really easy to do, okay? You can do that. You can find girls of age who look young and act. You do not have to exploit little girls. I don't know what else to say about this film, except you need to cancel Netflix. Here's what you need to do in order to stop this from happening. Because I'm scared we're too far as it is. But if people stand up right now and there's a movement to be made, now's the time to do this because it's getting a little bit too far. Because Netflix is not backing down. They're taking billions of dollars of hit, and notice they're not even flinching because this is the risk that was already mitigated to push this narrative forward to normalize this. It's almost like, and it's not what's happening, but it's almost like all these Hollywood elites are sitting around this big round table at this giant resort somewhere, and they're literally making secret plans on how they can normalize this behavior because they want to partake of it. And so Hollywood shapes culture. And if you don't think Hollywood shapes culture, you're wrong. Hollywood shapes culture because this is what we ingest. Music, Hollywood, politics shape culture. It absolutely does. This is why people pay millions of dollars to put their, just like, look at the movies from the 80s. If you had a Coke can in there, that's shaping culture. Like advertising, everything is shaping culture. If an actor's doing something, you want to do it. Remember when I said I was young and I love Macaulay Culkin? I would have done anything to be like Macaulay Culkin. It's the money that draws people in and draws the parents in. It's all this stuff that they want to normalize this crazy behavior so they can continue to take advantage of kids. That is the underlying overarching theme here. They need to continue this and make it more acceptable so they can mitigate the risk of being caught doing this. Because I think California is already starting to make it so that let me look that up. So Senator Melissa Melendez, I don't know if this is like fact checked, whatever. I'm not a fact checker. I'm not a newspaper. Senator Melissa Melendez says, well, what a shock. Newsom signed SB 145, the bill that allows a 24-year-old to have sex with a 14-year-old and escape a felony conviction and requirement to be a registered sex offender. Absolutely disgusting. There's a lot of people calling this out saying that's not what it is, but that's, of course, the leftist newspapers, the far, far, far left newspapers and the mainstream media want you to say, no, this is cool, this is cool. I'm gonna do some more digging into SB 145, and I'm gonna tell you what I think it says, because a lot of people just come out on Twitter and say a bunch of stuff. I can't imagine a senator is gonna come out and tell me that a bill that she's against is what she's saying about, I can't put it past politicians. So look into SB 145 and let's take a look at this stuff. But when it starts becoming normalized, like this film, like Hollywood allowing this to happen, the next step is going to be bigger. Because they're getting massive pushback now, and they know that pushback is happening. But that's the risk they're willing to take. That is the payment they're willing to. That is the hit they're willing to take on this. They know it's happening. They don't care how many billions this is going to cost, because in the end, they just print money anyway. There's so much money in Hollywood, they don't even know what to do with it. So, all that to say, what you can do right now is to stand up against this, is to cancel your Netflix account. Just tweeting at Netflix and saying tweeting cancel Netflix is going to do nothing. You literally have to make the move to go cancel Netflix. Look, a lot of people are like, oh, there's so many shows I like watching. I get that too, and I'm not going to judge you for that. I get it, because there's a lot of great creators on Netflix that need to make their money on Netflix, and you don't want to like shut them down. It's just the reality of it. Unfortunately, if we don't stand up for this and we don't get this removed, then they're going to continue to let this happen, because the next person's going to be like, oh, okay, they that's cool, they're cool. They're going to start doing this more and more and more, and it's just going to get so crazy. And I'm scared for my kids, and you should be too. If you want to watch something, and you like Netflix, you want to watch, just head over to popcorntime.app. I'm not going to say more than that. Popcorntime.app. Get the thing. Cut your cord. Don't have cable anymore. If you guys ever want to contact me offline about how you can cut your cable and still watch all the sports you want, all the movies you want, all the TV you want, contact me and I'm happy to tell you how to do that. Okay? Not a lot of people are tech savvy. If you want all those shows on Netflix that you can't get if you cancel it, I'll show you how to get those shows. I will show you how. But I can't tell you on here. So, this is a topic that just we're not going to let go. Let's follow this. Let's continue. And please do your part. You can sign the thing below that tells them to take it down. Cancel your Netflix subscription until they take it off and just get it back. That's fine if you want to. But if they don't listen to the hundreds of thousands of people that are upset about this, they're not going to. And it's going to get worse. So you got to put your money where your mouth is. You vote with your wallet. If it hits them hard enough, they're going to say, okay. It's going to set them back. This is a battle we have to continue to fight. Keep pushing. We cannot allow exploitation of our children to be normalized. And that is exactly what's happening. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all these places are allowing it to happen. They know what's going on and they're not doing a thing about it. But if you have the wrong political ideology, you're gone. Think about it for a minute. Protect our children. Anyway, like or subscribe or don't. I don't care. Whatever. I'm going to keep following this one, and it's been crazy, and I can't get over how terrible this is. I cannot believe that people are sticking up for this. And if you have friends that are sticking up for this film, tell them that you're not friends with them anymore. But I hope your day is awesome. Aside from all this crap, don't watch this film. Don't watch it. Just don't give them the satisfaction. It's not worth it. Anyway, we'll see you next time. The Dad Challenge Podcast. Ugh.